some great opportunity to ask most important cues or advice on pressing portion of a log press, which is kind of the next section. So kind of we'll start off a little early, Josh. Of course, I have a little bit more of an Olympic style of log press. You have your kind of lean back method or your head back method. Of course, me and Joe talked about it for extensively when he came to visit in Boston back in 2021. But yeah, what are your kind of cues or your takeaways in terms of the pressing portion of a log? What do you preach to your clients?
So I'm kind of known for pushing the strict press online, but behind the scenes, it's not necessarily the case. It's I believe the best way to press a log is a push press with the head back. That's so I try and get people to push press with head back. I also believe that log strict press is a completely different lift to a log push press. So I don't put them in the same category. And I use the log strict press as one of the main press accessories to help a log push press. Now, the kind of where people came in and were like, oh, Shane teaches the strict presses, because it's a completely separate lift. There have been times where I have been building someone's strict press in the background to help their push press. And they say to me, Shane, I prefer strict pressing this. And then over time, they kind of become a strict press logger because they feel like it's more efficient for them than the push press. And I'm on the fence with this, where I'm like, I also did this because I was a really good log push presser. Like, I had really good technique. I'm really explosive. I've weightlifted for years as well. But then when I started pushing my strict press as a kind of fun side quest, I was like, why is this getting better than my push press? And because I experienced that feeling, I can't argue against it, because I also tried to go back to push press. Like, oh, now that my strict press is so good, maybe I'll push press for a while and see if I can get even more. But it just didn't work out like that for me. So I treat them as two separate lifts. So my best advice, to go back to the question, would be find out which style of pressing you're best suited to. Is it a push press, a power jerk, or a split jerk? I think they're all viable ways of pressing a log. I think the split jerk and the power jerk are much harder on a log than a barbell, but some people do prefer it. Find out what you're most suited to, first of all, and make that your main lift. But whichever lift you choose to pursue as your main lift, the log strict press is the best assistance for log press, in my opinion, personally, because I think you can do so much volume. I think you can handle frequency with it. And I just think that it's something that you can really milk to help build whatever the hell your main lift is. So, yeah.
Interesting. I always say that good athletes should be proficient in the, let's just say, a strict / Viper push press and some sort of jerk. I think they should have all three in their arsenals, just depending on if they have a medley, a medley, something for reps, a max. So they'd be prepared for whatever kind of situation. But for the most part, I've been trying, even right now during this little off season that I have, now that I'm kind of 22 weeks out, then now I'm into the off season that I wanted back in after Worlds. But now I've been trying some of the lean back methods. So I feel that it's a lot of like triceps and of course triceps and shoulders, but I feel like I'm not getting like the upper back stimulation that I would when I force my head through. When usually I like to kind of force everything through. Now not only do I get the shoulders and triceps involved, but I get my scaps, my lats. I get my whole system into it. I kind of like squeeze upwards where I'm pushing up against the weight. So if the weight ever kind of falls or gets out of position, I'm still kind of pushing up against the weight. And then it's really easy to transfer that skill onto a jerk. So would you keep the head back or lean back on if you're also split jerking a log, or would that be a totally different technique?
So this is just my opinion.
Yeah. I want to hear
strict log should be an accessory for the main lift. So if the main lift, you feel all these sensations, then get that adaptation from the main lift. But the strict log is what it is. Everything you're explaining is what it is. That's the benefits that it gives you. So I would just accept it for what it is and milk those benefits. And then for the head through, you already get that on your push press log, when you split jerk, when you do your other, like your Tsunami Bar work, or if you're doing barbell strict, or I'm a big fan of behind the neck strict, I really like that. All those adaptations, you get that from those exercises. The strict log really allows you to get heavy, high volume, high frequency tricep, shoulder, strict volume in, and that's what I use it for. I spam some. The first thing anyone says to my coaches, there's a lot of strict log volume here, because there's so much volume. That's what I use it for, volume. Like 10 sets of 6 will be a common block that I use. And then we'll periodize it 10 by 6, 10 by 6, 10 by 5, 10 by 5, 10 by 4, 10 by 4, 10 by 3, 10 by 3. We'll go down, boom. And that's a 6 week, 8 week block that we use commonly, but it's 10 sets of high volume, because the strict log, it's not nasty on your joints. It's really nice on your joints. You're not having to dip and be dynamic through the knees, so you don't need to worry about the knees, getting overworked, which I think is the limiting factor for most people's pressing volume. Is if they're push pressing and dynamic, it's usually the knees and hips and stuff that go before the shoulders. I find that if you've got good shoulder mobility, they can handle a lot of volume through the shoulders. So the strict log from rack, remove the clean, use it, milk it, get just volume, build those shoulders, triceps, chest as well, because when you're leaning back, your chest's very involved. Then that will carry over to in my opinion, every single press variation you do in strongman, it carries over to, because you'll build so much tissue and so much size and raw strength. So that's how I view the strict log, because if we spam that much on barbell, I find people on the elbows, my wrists, they start to, the myofascial side, the tendons, ligaments, they start to go first. So, we've got to tone the volume down, we're overtraining. Strict log, I haven't found a volume limit for it. It just is so, you can go so high with it, you can go stupid with it, which is why it's so easy, in my opinion, to milk, because you can then chuck so much volume at an athlete, they adapt, they respond, they grow, and then boom, suddenly they're getting PBs on the push press log, the push press axle, everything.
Now, what do you think about the rack position when it comes to a log? Now, I'm a big proponent of forcing the delts up, so you almost create I would say a shelf, so you're able not only to, I coined this, I don't know what other term you would use it for, but I call it the body pop. You're able to use your, kind of like similar to what we're talking on the dumbbell. I'm able to use my delts to punch the log upwards with just using my delts, but also it creates a rack so you can breathe in that rack position, and you can breathe and then engage your dip and drive. But what do you teach, or what do you think about the rack position in the log?
Yeah, so on a push press log, exactly that. I really like as a coach, like a good coach's thing to look at is, if you look from the front, can I see through, and see the wall behind? Because when somebody pushes that shoulder up, there's this little bit of space created here where you can kind of see light peering through, and that always showcases a good rack position on the log for the push press. Whereas on the strict press log, I actually want the shoulders more down and them to be leaning back, elbow to be directly under wrist, and more extension through lower T-spine, because the log push press rack requires a lot of T-spine extension higher up, but the strict log, you want to be going lower down, the lumbar, and extending back even further, so that you're able to press directly upwards and then be still through midfoot. So the two, like I say, I treat the lifts as two different lifts. I don't strict press from a push press rack position, because I think that limits load massively. And then for me, the way I coach peeps is, how can we maximize load exposure? So if we can change that strict press rack to more an Olympic bent press style, it changes how much weight you can get off of the chest. And to be honest, sometimes I've got so much force off of my chest on a strict log. I'm like, did I push press that? Because it felt like a leg drived it. So I think they're really two different racks. But I completely agree on the push press rack. I think that almost like an Olympic style rack really is kind of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, because I've been playing around with a different kind of if I'm doing strict log for reps, I haven't been getting into like the big rack positioning. I've been kind of rolling it up, almost staying in the lean back and then just kind of strictening. So I like that piece in terms of it's two different lifts. I think that's a good way to kind of think about it going forward. So I'll play around with it. But for the listeners, you want to tell them what your best strict press was at what body weight?
So I did a 190 on the log, and I was like 105 kilo. You know, I wasn't. People like to say 90, but I wasn't 90. I was 105. But like 105 was like weight in the gym as well, like fully clothed. So I guess I was like 102 or something. So it was pretty good strict log. My best push press log, I was 90 kilos, like pretty much bang on, and that was 170. Was my best push press log.
But that I remember that strict press years ago. Yeah, that was quite the thing at that body weight. Only if you recorded it did in competition could have been a record. I think we were. Well, I'm not sure if I broke the record at the time or I broke the record shortly after. But I remember seeing that. I'm like, I'm split.
Yeah, Emmanuel Pascari's. Oh, somebody else has beaten it now, haven't they? I think the record's 192.
His name is Patrick Zenica, maybe from Slovenia.
Yeah, no. Is it 192?
It's I think it might be 193. It's whatever 425 pounds comes out to be. But it's
crazy standard in strongman nowadays, isn't there? Crazy.
Yeah, but I think he's the first person that, like, for instance, like myself, I was of course a pretty decent competitor. Emmanuel's a pretty decent competitor. Win shows. When I broke the record before that was Rob Kearney. So the record was always held by like really good strongmen that were good at competitions. I think Patrick is the first one that has never really barely does any full shows, or it doesn't really go in I would say the main realm of a 105 top shows. So he's like the first one just being a pure log specialist and like doing pretty well at it. So. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing. But that was some good conversation for logs. So of course move on.